Welcome everyone to the latest AntSite video. In this episode I would like to introduce you to the more natural formicarium. More precisely, I want to show how ants transform their environment for themselves, whether we want it or not. That's why I came up with this experiment and spent several weeks building a lifelike natural environment for the ants. I have already eliminated many problems in advice during the planning which may occur, but you will see in the video that the ants still wade through our calculations wherever they can. The racks are carved out of iton cubes and passages and chambers are carved into their backside, so this is where the nesting area, i.e. the home of the ants, is located. The exterior of the iton was smeared with colored clay and patterned. In the same way, only the surface of the soil is gravelly. In fact, it is covered with 1 to 2 cm thick solid clay so that they cannot spread it or dig into it. The racks were completely embedded in the ground and the gaps between the glass and the iton were subsequently filled. The vegetation was glued to the racks. I had an anti-escape rim custom made for the top of the terrarium, which closes ant-proof. An 8 cm diameter lattice roof was placed in the middle. I would have liked a larger one, but unfortunately they couldn't achieve a larger diameter with less because it would have snapped during cutting. So you can see that I thought about a lot of things in advice, things that only an ant would think of in its tiny head. Still, they caused surprises. Since the entire environment has to be kept dry due to the fungi, bacteria and pests, only a species with a low humidity requirement can survive in it. This is how we choose the Messor structor harvester ant, which tolerates drag very well. So the ants were moved in, a 4-year-old colony with 2 queens. Peaceful, natural harmony could thus be restored. I mean, it could have been restored. As expected, at first they wanted to run out, but then they soon calmed down and organized themselves. At the base of the rocks, they built their defenses around the queens and began gathering their brood there. You could see that they were really testing their environment and were constantly looking for opportunities to move whatever could be moved or a place where they could bury themselves. They determinedly looked for opportunities to escape as well. Some workers began to explore passages in the rocks. Once they saw that it was a safe nest, they started bringing in the brood and seeds. I had planned for them to live in this terrarium for months. I would show you what changes they had made to their environment. But to be honest, I was quite surprised because already that evening they started to wreck everything that came in front of their mandibles. Not long after moving in, they completely dismantled the lichen bushes intended for decoration and rudely carried its pieces to the wall of the terrarium. The colony finally moved into the spot where the bush had been at the base of the rock wall. This is a bit incomprehensible to me, since it would have been beneficial from a defense point of view if they hadn't destroyed it. The first major problem was caused by too high humidity. Even though I dried the plaster for days with heating, some moisture remained in it, which it later released. Since glass ventilates worse than plexiglass, and there is only one relatively small vent at the top, mites soon appeared in the terrarium. This made the situation quite difficult and caused a significant drop in the number of the colony. These mites aren't directly dangerous to the ants, but their lifestyle creates a harmful environment, which is why the ants could slowly die out because of them. Eight months later, the time for wintering has arrived, and I can show you how much the ants have changed their territory. I was able to eliminate the mite infestation by several weeks of drying. Previously, in addition to the chopped food, the colony also received a leaf cockroach. However, since their number decreased significantly due to mites, they could no longer dominate their territory, and the cockroach had been happily living with them in the terrarium for months. It's quite a cheeky cockroach, I have to admit. Out of the two, they only inhabited the smaller rock. On the backside, you can see that some chambers of the other rock are being used as a garbage dump. They even carried the remains between the glass and the rock. This would be a problem in a more humid terrarium, as cleaning it under such conditions would be impossible. The columned hole in the larger rock also stands empty, even though it's one of my favorite parts of the nest. You can see that the Messor structures are actively shaping their territory. They stripped the ground as much as they could. Luckily, I poured it from plaster, otherwise they would have cleared it down to the glass floor, which wouldn't look very natural. They created their trash pile in front of the front wall, where they placed movable pebbles and insect remains. They completely shredded the bush-like lichen, but they didn't chew off the moss glued to the rocks, so it simply dried out and turned yellow due to the lack of moisture. The painted plaster was worn off in several places on the rock wall, which is why you can see white spots on it. The colony is prepared for wintering, as they no longer have eggs or pupae, only larvae. These are overwintering larvae, capable of surviving the winter, and workers will only emerge from them next year. Unfortunately, the entire terrarium doesn't fit in the fridge, so I had to come up with a way to move the ants to a smaller place suitable for hibernation. Since I can't access their chambers, my first step is to guide them into these darkened test tubes. To do this, I will use a 7-watt heat mat. I attached the heat mat to the side wall of the terrarium so that the dry heat would encourage the ants to move into the test tubes. Most of the colony soon moved into the test tubes, but the rest started filling the chambers with seeds due to the dry heat. It seems that they want to use this newly heated area as a storage. Because of their packing efforts, there's still too much activity in these chambers, so I'm turning the heat mat up to its maximum setting. The temperature has not exceeded 40 degrees Celsius, so the ants have moved back into the test tubes. Although I could hibernate them in test tubes, I prefer to place a colony of this size in a larger container in the fridge for safety. Those that have already moved into the test tube will now be placed into the escape-proof box. For the others, I'm placing an empty, darkened test tube into the terrarium. With their need for moisture, sooner or later all the workers will gather in it. If not all at once, then in smaller groups, but eventually they will all be transferred to the box. They are getting some food, and after a long, gradual cooling process, they can go into the fridge to rest. The terrarium now stands empty again. Unfortunately, a full cleaning isn't possible, but after some trash removal and glass cleaning, it will be ready to host another ant colony. These Ytong formicariums are disposable, so we can use them until they get completely dirty, after which, unfortunately, they are no longer suitable for ant keeping. The higher the humidity we achieve in them, the sooner this happens. This terrarium still might be suitable for another colony for maybe one more year, but as you could see, its condition has deteriorated, even though the nest itself was never directly moistened. So I don't think it would last a third year with a mature colony. I hope this video was helpful and you learned something about the setup of these more naturalistic formicariums. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon. See you in the next video.